The humming chamber of the Galactic Council vibrated with tension. Silver light bathed the alien representatives seated in their designated sections, each illuminated to reflect their star system's natural radiation signatures. Orison 9, the massive orbital station that served as the Council's meeting ground, had been built as a symbol of interstellar cooperation. Today, it served as a court. Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the Earth delegation's observation deck, his weathered face revealing nothing as he studied the political theater unfolding below. The Council's High Arbiter, a towering avian being named Quelix, was performing his usual self-important monologue about galactic peace. "Typical," Morrison muttered, scrolling through the colonial reports on his neural pad. The mining colony on Proxima Centauri 3 was struggling with food shortages again, and the terraforming project on Europa was behind schedule. Earth had prospered in the interstellar community, but always from a position of cautious independence. The Council had never been fully trusted. Morrison's comlink buzzed. "Admiral, you need to see this." The voice belonged to Dr. Alina Martinez, head of Earth's Advanced Research Directorate. Her holographic image appeared before him, her expression grave. "I'm in the middle of a council session, Dr. Martinez." Morrison replied, "Can it wait?" "No, sir. I've been reviewing our quantum patent histories against council records. There are discrepancies, significant ones." Morrison frowned. "What kind of discrepancies?" "The kind that suggests systematic technology theft. Not by us, Admiral, by them." Before Morrison could respond, the chamber's lights dimmed. Quelix's voice boomed through the translation systems. "Representatives of Earth, step forward." Morrison straightened his uniform and moved to the central platform. Ambassador Kate Williams joined him, her diplomatic robes flowing around her tall frame. "The Council has reviewed Earth's recent technological advancements," Quelix announced, his beak clicking between words. "We have reached a unanimous decision." The massive display screens surrounding the chamber flickered to life, showing fragments of crashed alien vessels scattered across Earth's deserts, mountains, and oceans. Morrison recognized some of the images, classified crash sites from the past century. "Humanity has stolen technology from advanced civilizations," Quelix declared. "You have reverse-engineered our innovations and claimed them as your own. This constitutes a Class 1 violation of Council law." Williams stepped forward. "High Arbiter, these accusations are not accusations. Facts." Quelix interrupted. "Earth has 3 standard cycles, 72 of your hours, to comply with the following terms. Return all stolen technology. Accept permanent Council surveillance stations on all Earth colonies and installations, or face exile from Council space for 200 years. The chamber erupted in shouted translations and gestures of approval from the alien delegates. Morrison's comlink vibrated again. Martinez's voice was tense. "Admiral, they're lying. We need to talk. Now." President Lisa Carter's face was ashen as she surveyed the assembled emergency team in the White House Situation Room. The year 2473 had begun with economic prosperity and scientific advancement for Earth and its colonies. Now, 3 months in, they faced an existential threat. "Let me understand this clearly," she said, her voice steady despite the tension. "The Galactic Council claims we've stolen technology, when Dr. Martinez's research suggests the opposite is true." Dr. Martinez nodded, her holographic presence projected from her laboratory on Titan. "Madam President, I've spent the last 6 hours examining our patent histories. Earth developed quantum computing in 2019 and faster-than-light communications in 2031. The Council's records claim they introduced these technologies to us in 2102 and 2157, respectively." Defense Secretary Ryan Brooks leaned forward. With all due respect, the evidence they presented looks damning. Those crash sites are real. The crashes are real, Admiral Morrison agreed, but their interpretation is suspect. State Secretary Helen Davis tapped her stylus against the table. We need proof, not suspicions. If we reject the Council's demands without evidence, we risk isolation. Proxima Centauri 3 is already facing food shortages. 200 years of exile would mean the deaths of millions. We need to buy time. President Carter decided. Ambassador Williams will inform the Council that we are reviewing their evidence. Meanwhile, Dr. Martinez, I want you working with intelligence to dig deeper. Admiral Morrison, prepare defensive contingencies, but keep them covert. Morrison nodded grimly. I'll have Captain Stevens examine those crash sites personally. One more thing, Dr. Martinez added. I'm going to need access to our best code breaker. Ben Rodriguez. President Carter raised an eyebrow. He's been under house arrest for hacking the Federal Reserve. Yes, and he's exactly the person we need to infiltrate the Council's archives. If they've been stealing our technology, there will be records. The President sighed. Approved. But this operation stays completely classified. If the Council gets wind of our investigation, they won't, Morrison assured her. We've been underestimated by them for centuries. That's about to become their biggest mistake. Captain Nick Stevens knelt in the New Mexico desert, his environmental suit gleaming in the afternoon sun. The crater before him had been a classified site for 83 years, home to the wreckage of what Earth authorities had always presumed was a scout ship from the Proxian hegemony. Now, with new scanning equipment and Martinez's analytical protocols, he was seeing something different. Linda, come look at this, he called to his team lead. Sergeant Linda Gray approached, her dark hair pulled back tight against her skull. What have you found, Captain? Stevens pointed to the blast pattern around the crash site. These aren't impact scars, they're explosive residue markers. This ship didn't crash. It was deliberately brought down after landing. Gray frowned. Sabotage. Or a staged crash, Stevens replied. Look at the fragment dispersion. It's too perfect, too theatrical. He stood, dust cascading from his suit. We need to check the other sites. Meanwhile, in a secure basement beneath the Pentagon, Ben Rodriguez sat before a quantum interface, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. His dark eyes never left the cascading data streams as he worked. Dr. Martinez watched from a chair nearby, occasionally sipping from a cup of coffee. They're good, Rodriguez muttered. Multi-layered encryption, shifting authentication protocols. But they made one mistake. What's that? Martinez asked. They used Earth-based quantum algorithms as their foundation. Our algorithms. Rodriguez grinned. I'm in. The display wall filled with Council documents, translating in real time from a dozen alien languages. Martinez moved closer, scanning the material with growing horror. The crash sites were engineered, she said. Look, detailed plans for each vessel, placement coordinates, radioactive markers to suggest alien origin. She pointed to another file. And this, the Harvest Protocol. They've been systematically stealing technology from developing worlds, then blackmailing them with false evidence of theft. Rodriguez nodded grimly. Earth isn't the first target. We're just the first to catch them in the act. Download everything, Martinez ordered, and find me the names of previous victims. Across the solar system, Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the EDF Intrepid, Earth's flagship. The massive vessel hung in space beyond Neptune's orbit, surrounded by the 40 ships of Earth's defensive fleet. It wasn't enough to face the Council's armada of over 500 vessels. But Morrison wasn't planning a conventional battle. Admiral, his communications officer called, secure transmission from Titan Base. Martinez's face appeared on his private screen. We have confirmation, Admiral. The Council has been running this scheme for centuries. They identify promising species, steal their innovations, then blackmail them into subservience by accusing them of the very crime the Council is committing. Morrison's jaw tightened. Can you prove it? Better than that. Rodriguez found their complete technological database. We know exactly what systems they're using, because they were originally ours. Martinez's eyes gleamed. And I can build a back door into every piece of technology we return to them. A Trojan horse, Morrison said, nodding slowly. Exactly. We'll give them what they want, along with a little surprise. I'm calling it the mirror shutdown. One command, and every piece of technology they've stolen from us will go dark simultaneously. Morrison stared out at the stars, wrestling with doubt. The plan was audacious, possibly suicidal. If it failed, Earth would face not just exile, but likely annihilation. We've been too trusting, Martinez said softly, reading his expression. I blamed myself at first. All those years studying their advanced systems, never questioning why they seemed so familiar conceptually. The Council has maintained power through deception for too long, Morrison replied. If we expose them, the entire galactic power structure could collapse. Maybe it should. Morrison nodded slowly. I'll inform the President. Begin preparations. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of activity. While Ambassador Williams stalled with diplomatic double-talk, Earth's military and scientific communities mobilized for their most ambitious operation ever. Sergeant Gray led a stealth team to board one of the crashed vessels in the Antarctic. Unlike previous investigative teams, they weren't looking for technology, they were looking for proof of sabotage. Check the navigation system, Gray ordered, her breath fogging inside her helmet as she examined the ship's control room. Council records claim this vessel was a Bernari scout ship that malfunctioned. Her technician, Specialist Wong, worked at the damaged console. I've got access to partial logs. This wasn't a Bernari ship at all. It's a Council construction designed to look Bernari, and it didn't malfunction. The self-destruct was triggered remotely after landing. Gray documented everything, transmitting the evidence back to headquarters. Keep searching. I want manufacturer markings, material composition, anything that proves Council involvement. Meanwhile, Dr. Martinez had transformed her Titan laboratory into a workshop for what she termed return gifts. Her team worked around the clock, building devices that appeared to be stolen alien technology but were actually human innovations with hidden modifications. The quantum-entangled trackers need to be completely undetectable, she instructed Chris Davis, her chief engineer. When the Council accepts these devices, they'll unknowingly install our eyes and ears throughout their network. Davis, a thin man with perpetually stained fingertips, nodded as he inserted microscopic components into what appeared to be a standard FTL communication array. These will give us real-time access to every message they send, and when activated, the shutdown commands will cascade through their entire system. On Luna Station, Earth's diplomatic outpost and the designated site for the technology transfer, Ambassador Williams supervised preparations for the ceremony. The Council had sent a delegation of 30 representatives, including High Arbiter Quelix himself. They're confident, Williams observed to her aide. Too confident. They believe we're surrendering, the aide replied. Williams smiled thinly. Let them believe it for 24 more hours. The countdown clocks ticked lower across command centers on Earth, Luna, and the scattered colonies. Tension mounted with each passing hour. Rodriguez continued mining the Council's database, identifying compromised species and stolen innovations. Martinez refined the mirror shutdown protocols, and Morrison positioned Earth's fleet in apparently defensive formations that concealed their true tactical purpose. During a secure briefing 12 hours before the deadline, Morrison voiced his concerns to the president. What if the council discovers the trap? We're committing everything to this strategy. President Carter looked around the room at her assembled advisors. The alternative is submission to blackmail, which history tells us only invites further exploitation. We've confirmed they've done this to 16 other species. We can't allow Earth to become the 17th. Secretary Brooks nodded grimly. If we succeed, we won't just be saving ourselves. We'll be liberating an entire galaxy from technological extortion. And if we fail, Morrison pressed. Then at least we failed fighting, Carter replied. Admiral, your fleet is authorized to engage in defensive operations only until the mirror shutdown activates. After that, full operational discretion is yours. Yes, Madam President. As the meeting concluded, Dr. Martinez approached Morrison. Admiral, a word? They stepped into a private communication alcove. Martinez looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes betraying her lack of sleep. There's something you should know, she said quietly. The Council's archive contained references to a previous species that attempted resistance. The Thrillaxians, about 300 years ago. Morrison frowned. I've never heard of them. No one has. They were completely erased, their colonies annexed, their homeworld quarantined, their very existence struck from galactic records. Martinez met his gaze steadily. If our plan fails, the Council won't just exile us, they'll make an example of humanity. Morrison absorbed this in silence. Finally, he said, then we make sure it doesn't fail. The ceremonial hall on Luna Station gleamed with polished steel and ceremonial banners representing Council worlds. Ambassador Williams stood at the center of the circular chamber, flanked by an honor guard of Earth Defense Force Marines. Before her, arranged on anti-gravity platforms, floated the stolen technology Earth was returning, 50 devices representing the most advanced systems humanity had supposedly reverse-engineered from crashed alien vessels. High Arbiter Quelix entered with his delegation, his long robes sweeping the floor. Feathered crest expanded in a display of dominance. The various alien representatives took their positions, some requiring special atmospheric chambers, others manipulating robotic avatars to interact in Earth's gravity. Ambassador Williams, Quelix intoned, his translator rendering his clicking speech into English. The Council recognizes Earth's wisdom in accepting our judgment. Your compliance will be noted favorably in future deliberations. Williams bowed slightly. High Arbiter, Earth presents these technologies as requested. We trust this resolves the Council's concerns. It is a beginning, Quelix replied. The surveillance installations will ensure no further misunderstandings. The High Arbiter approached the platforms, examining the devices with obvious satisfaction. Behind her diplomatic mask, Williams felt a surge of disgust. Every device before them was of human origin, yet Quelix was inspecting them as if confirming the return of stolen property. The Council accepts these returns, Quelix finally announced. The technology will be redistributed appropriately among member species. Williams nodded to her aide, who activated a communication link. Dr. Martinez, the transfer is complete. In her laboratory on Titan, Martinez received the confirmation and initiated the final sequence. Mirror shutdown activating in 3, 2, 1. Across Council space, on 537 warships, 42 space stations, and installations on 89 planets, critical systems suddenly went dark. Navigation, weapons, communications, life support all failed simultaneously. The quantum-entangled trackers activated, transmitting location data to Earth's defense network. On Luna Station, the artificial gravity fluctuated as emergency systems engaged. The Council delegation's personal devices and translators shut down, leaving them in confused disarray. Only Quelix's translator continued functioning. Martinez had specifically excluded it to ensure communication remained possible. "What is happening?" the High Arbiter demanded, his crest flattening against his skull in alarm. Ambassador Williams smiled coldly. "A demonstration, High Arbiter. Every piece of technology your council has stolen from Earth over the centuries just received a shutdown command. Your fleet is currently drifting, powerless. Your space stations are operating on emergency backups." Quelix's alien features contorted in rage. "This is an act of war. The Council will—" "The Council will do nothing," Williams interrupted. "Admiral Morrison, please show the High Arbiter why." The chamber's display screens activated, showing real-time footage from space. The Council's massive fleet hung motionless against the stars. Surrounding them, previously hidden asteroid weapon platforms decloaked, their weapons trained on the helpless vessels. Squadrons of Earth fighters emerged from cloaking fields, taking position around key Council ships. "Impossible," Quelix whispered. "Earth doesn't possess cloaking technology." "We didn't," Williams agreed, "until we reverse-engineered it from one of your crashed vessels, the one you deliberately planted in the Antarctic 60 years ago." The chamber doors opened, and President Carter entered, accompanied by Admiral Morrison and Dr. Martinez. Martinez carried a holographic projector, which she activated in the center of the room. "Council representatives," President Carter addressed them. "What you are about to see has been simultaneously transmitted to every world in Council space." The hologram displayed a comprehensive timeline of the Council's Harvest Protocol, complete with documented evidence of technology theft, staged crash sites, and blackmail operations spanning centuries. "For 300 years, Carter continued, the Council has maintained power through systematic theft and extortion. Earth is not your victim. We are your reckoning." On the screens, Council warships were showing signs of internal conflict. Several had launched escape pods. Others were experiencing what appeared to be crew mutinies. "Your officers are receiving the same evidence we're showing you," Morrison explained to Quelix, along with proof that the Council has been stealing technological innovations from their homeworlds as well. Quelix's translator struggled to convey his rage and disbelief. "You cannot expect to overthrow centuries of galactic order. The consequences—" His words were cut short as his own security detail surrounded him. The lead officer, a reptilian being with iridescent scales, addressed President Carter directly. "President of Earth, I am Commander Slith of the Draconian Guard. On behalf of the free officers of the Council fleet, I place High Arbiter Quelix under arrest for crimes against sentient species." The commander turned to Quelix. "Your orders to eliminate Earth should they resist have been transmitted to all vessels. This constitutes genocide under Council law." Quelix lunged for an emergency beacon on his belt, but Slith was faster. The High Arbiter collapsed under a stun blast, his ceremonial robes pooling around him. "Earth forces have transmitted unlock codes to restore our basic systems," Slith informed Carter. "We request neutral territory for diplomatic discussions regarding transition of power." President Carter nodded. "Luna Station will serve as neutral ground. Admiral Morrison will coordinate with your officers to ensure safe passage for all Council vessels wishing to stand down." As the Council delegation was escorted from the chamber, Dr. Martinez approached the President. "It worked," she said quietly, "better than we anticipated." "Yes," Carter replied, watching the screens where Council ships were powering back up under Earth supervision, "but the hard part begins now. Rebuilding galactic governance without repeating the Council's mistakes." "At least we'll be building on truth this time," Martinez said, "not deception." In the immediate aftermath, Earth faced a critical decision, with the Council fleet at their mercy and evidence of centuries of manipulation. Many voices called for retribution. Defense Secretary Brooks argued for dismantling the Council completely, and establishing Earth as the new center of galactic authority. They would have erased us without hesitation, he pointed out during an emergency cabinet meeting. The Thalaxians are proof of that. President Carter shook her head. We didn't expose the Council's abuses to replace them with our own version of dominance. Admiral Morrison, what's the status of the Council worlds? Morrison consulted his neural pad. Mixed reactions. Some are celebrating the Council's downfall. Others are in chaos. Most are waiting to see what Earth does next. And what will we do? State Secretary Davis asked. We'll offer humanitarian aid, Carter decided, medical supplies, food, technical assistance to worlds affected by the shutdown, and we'll offer repatriation to any Council personnel who wish to return home. Repatriation? Brooks looked incredulous. These people were going to subjugate us. Many were just following orders, Morrison pointed out. The evidence suggests most Council personnel had no knowledge of the Harvest Protocol. They believed Earth was genuinely guilty of technology theft. Dr. Martinez, who had been quietly analyzing data from the captured Council archives, looked up. There's something else you should see, Madam President. The Council didn't just steal technology, they suppressed it. I'm finding innovation paths from dozens of worlds that were deliberately blocked, research lines that were discouraged or outlawed. Keeping everyone dependent on them, Carter mused. What do you recommend, Doctor? Martinez's eyes lit with rare enthusiasm. A galaxy-wide open-source technology exchange. Every species contributing their innovations freely, building on each other's work instead of hoarding advantages. Idealistic, Brooks muttered. Perhaps, Martinez acknowledged, but isn't that better than pragmatic oppression? President Carter smiled. Draft the proposal. Dr. Admiral Morrison, coordinate with Commander Slith and other allied Council officers. I want a conference of all affected species convened within the month. That's ambitious, Morrison said. So was bringing down the Council in 72 hours, Carter replied. Humanity's proven what we can accomplish when threatened. Let's see what we can build when inspired. Over the following weeks, Earth vessels delivered aid to former Council worlds. Ambassador Williams traveled tirelessly, meeting with representatives of species that had long viewed Earth with Council-induced suspicion. Gradually, a new interstellar narrative emerged, one of cooperation rather than coercion. 3 months after the Mirror shutdown, over 100 species assembled on Earth for the founding conference of the Free Species Alliance. The United Nations headquarters in New York, expanded over the centuries but still recognizable, hosted delegates from across the galaxy. Ambassador Williams, now appointed Secretary General of the new alliance, formally opened the proceedings in the General Assembly Hall. Distinguished representatives, she began, her voice carrying to all through translation systems, developed cooperatively by 6 different worlds. We gather today not as rulers and subjects, not as advanced and developing worlds, but as equals. Each of us brings unique perspectives, technologies, and cultures. Our strength lies not in dominance, but in diversity. The gathered delegates, some humanoid, others wildly different in form, signaled their approval through their various cultural gestures. The Galactic Council maintained power through artificial scarcity and manufactured conflict. Williams continued, the Free Species Alliance will thrive through abundance and cooperation. Our first act will be the establishment of the Unified Innovation Exchange, a galaxy-wide repository of scientific and technological knowledge, freely available to all member worlds. On Titan, Dr. Martinez watched the proceedings via holographic projection. Around her, the laboratory that had once created weapons of deception now housed the primary server hub for the Innovation Exchange. Engineers from 20 different worlds worked alongside her team, integrating systems and knowledge bases. It's really happening, Chris Davis remarked, standing beside her. "When we were building those tracker devices, I never imagined we'd end up here." Martinez nodded. The Council couldn't imagine a system based on cooperation rather than control. That was their fundamental weakness. At Earth Defense Force headquarters, Admiral Morrison met with commanders from former Council security forces. The meeting room was adapted to accommodate diverse physiologies, with atmosphere bubbles and gravity adjustments for species with different requirements. "The transition has been smoother than anticipated," Commander Slith reported. 93% of Council military personnel have either returned to their homeworlds or joined the Alliance security forces. "And the remaining 7%? Morrison asked. "Mostly Quelix loyalists." Another commander, a crystalline being named Tzktl, responded, "They've retreated to the outer systems. Our intelligence suggests they're fragmenting into competing factions." Morrison nodded. "We'll maintain surveillance, but our priority is establishing the Alliance defensive network. The new fleet command structure will integrate ships and crews from all member worlds." "A significant departure from Council protocols," Slith observed. "The Council saw diversity as a weakness to exploit," Morrison replied. "We see it as a strength to cultivate." On Orison 9, the massive space station that had once housed the Galactic Council's chambers, Alliance engineers were retrofitting the facilities. The hierarchical design, with elevated platforms for senior species and lower positions for developing worlds, was being replaced with a circular arrangement that placed all representatives on equal footing. The Council's old seat, where High Arbiter Quelix had once pronounced judgment, had been removed entirely. In its place stood a simple holographic projector that would display the current speaker, regardless of species or status. Ambassador Williams, now Secretary General Williams, toured the renovations with President Carter and a delegation of Alliance officials. "Symbolic and practical," Carter commented, studying the new chamber design. "No more looking up at self-appointed superiors." "The Alliance isn't just changing policies," Williams replied. "It's changing perspective. When species look at each other as equals rather than competitors, cooperation becomes natural." A junior aide approached, clearing her throat nervously. "Madam Secretary, we've received a communication from the Thrallaxian quarantine zone." Carter and Williams exchanged startled glances. "The Thrallaxians?" Williams asked. "But they were supposedly extinct." "Apparently not," the aide replied. "Our deep space communications array received a signal using very old protocols. They've been monitoring galactic transmissions and are requesting contact with the new Alliance leadership." "A species the Council tried to erase," Carter said softly. "Reaching out after 3 centuries of isolation." Williams nodded decisively. "Inform them that Alliance representatives will depart immediately. The Thrallaxians will be our first restoration project." As they continued their tour, Carter gestured toward a display showing the growing membership of the Alliance. 8 weeks ago, we were facing exile. Now we're leading a galactic revolution." "Not leading," Williams corrected gently. "Facilitating. That distinction is what separates us from the Council." On Earth, Dr. Martinez had finally returned from Titan. Standing in her office at the Advanced Research Directorate headquarters, she gazed out at the Washington Monument, still standing after all these centuries. Her neural pad buzzed with updates from the Innovation Exchange, thousands of new technological contributions flooding in each day as formerly suppressed research flourished across Alliance worlds. Admiral Morrison entered, looking more relaxed than she had seen him in months. "Dr. Martinez, the President requested I deliver this personally." He handed her a small box. Inside lay a medal, the newly created Alliance Scientific Cooperation Medal, with Earth's continents intertwined with symbols from a dozen other worlds. For exceptional service to interspecies understanding and technological advancement, Morrison recited. You're the first recipient. Martinez smiled but shook her head. It should be a group award. Rodriguez, Davis, your Captain Stevens, Sergeant Gray. So many people made this possible. They're all being recognized, Morrison assured her. But your insight into the Council's technological theft was the catalyst. Without that, we might have surrendered. Martinez turned back to the window. I keep thinking about how close we came to becoming just another subjugated world, all those species that couldn't resist. But we did resist, Morrison reminded her, and now they're free too. Not just free, Martinez said, connected. The Innovation Exchange has already identified compatible technologies from 17 different worlds that, when combined, will revolutionize space travel. Working together, we'll advance faster than any single species could alone, even the Council. Morrison nodded. The Alliance fleet is already implementing some of those advances. Ships that were adversaries 3 months ago are now sharing navigation techniques, weapon safety protocols, even cultural practices. That reminds me, Martinez said. The Duraxian delegates sent a message. They've been analyzing the technology we used to create the mirror shutdown and have developed an improved version. They're freely sharing the specifications with all Alliance members. Morrison chuckled. The Council's worst nightmare, species helping each other advance. Their fundamental miscalculation, Martinez agreed. They assumed all intelligent life would follow their pattern of hoarding advantage. They couldn't conceive of voluntary cooperation as a superior strategy. From the streets below came sounds of celebration, one of many spontaneous festivals that had erupted across Earth since the Alliance formation. Citizens mingled with visitors from dozens of worlds, sharing music, food, and stories. We should join them, Morrison suggested. The neural scientists from Proxima Centauri have apparently created a device that lets different species share sensory experiences. They're demonstrating it in the plaza. Another innovation that would have been suppressed under the Council, Martinez observed, setting down her medal and grabbing her coat. I wouldn't miss it. As they left the building, they passed a holographic display showing real-time updates from across the galaxy. The image currently featured the Council's old seat on Orison 9, now empty, its legacy of domination replaced by the new Alliance symbol, a spiral of stars, each one equally bright, moving in harmony. Around it, the words truth, cooperation, progress rotated slowly in 100 different languages. The galaxy had awakened to a new reality, one built not on extortion and lies, but on the revolutionary idea that different worlds could achieve more together than they ever could through conquest. You know, Morrison said as they joined the diverse crowd in the plaza, I think the Council did us a favor with their ultimatum. Martinez raised an eyebrow. How so? They forced us to choose between submission and innovation. Morrison smiled as a group of child diplomats, offspring of various ambassadors, ran past, playing a game that blended traditions from a dozen worlds. I'd say humanity made the right choice. Not just humanity, Martinez corrected, watching representatives from across the galaxy sharing knowledge and culture freely. All of us. Above them, the night sky was filled with more stars than ever before, not just because of Earth's clearer atmosphere, but because each point of light now represented not a distant, unknown realm, but a partner in the greatest cooperative venture in galactic history. The Council had tried to blackmail humanity. Earth's response hadn't just shocked the galaxy, it had transformed it.